Yo, hey everybody. I got some secrets for you today. That's right, we're talking data mines. In the last patch, Snap.fan data mined the whole thing and got some juice for us to talk about today, and I'm stoked for it. We got 4 cards to talk about. 2 are new from this patch and 2 I just haven't covered. And we got a whole set of locations for the upcoming month. So spoiler warning, if you want to experience this naturally, if you don't want to see what's to come in the future and just find out when the game updates, then get out of town, get out of here, don't watch this video. But if you want to talk about these new cards, locations, and speculate about some combos, let's get into it. All right, I'm going to kick it off with Stature. Holy smokes. So I actually saw this card grayed out in my Marvel Snap collection. Sometimes when they put datamine cards that are coming fairly soon, they'll do that. So this one could be coming in the next couple months, but wow, I think she's probably way too good. So she is a 5 cost 7 power. Cost 1, not cost 1 less, costs 1 if your opponent discarded a card from their hand this game. So one of the most natural ways of playing this is if your opponent is playing a discard deck, this is just free because you don't actually have to make them discard. If they discard on their own right, or maybe Sokovia, the location that discards a card from each player's hand, drops, boom. This is 1 cost for the rest of the game. It's not like you have to play it next turn. There's no other constraints. It's just a 1/7. Like, holy smokes, the value is through the roof. And then if we have to think about combinations, if we have to pair with something and make that discard happen in our own terms, we just use Moon Knight, who's a 3 cost. And then if we're running maybe discard package, then it's just fine. Hopefully she's not even in the hand, so she's not at risk of getting discarded. And then you draw her later and she'll be a 1. There's not even the constraint of this has to be in your hand when they discard the card. There's no constraints. This is crazy. So I was thinking Moon Knight is a good synergy. Black Bolt synergy. For the first time in the history of Marvel Snap, Black Bolt has something to live for. It's incredible. And then Moon Girl. If you get 2 of these and they're 1 cost, then on your turn 6, you can play 2 of these and whoever knows what else. A whole bunch of other stuff. Dudes, this is just nuts. Oh my gosh, this card blows my mind. The reason it's 4 and not 5 is because there is the mild, very mild condition of getting your opponent to discard a card. I don't think it's hard. You set up your deck for it, something random happens, maybe they play a discard deck. All the reasons I was already mentioning could happen very easily. And you could accidentally discard this, right? If you try to do the Moon Knight thing. Black Bolt, if you do that, then on turn 6, she's set up to be 1, and that's not too bad. But it might not always be an easy setup. And then also in maybe Hella discard decks, it's not that great. 7 power is kind of for Hella discard. You want something a little bit more impactful. So maybe she doesn't make the cut there. But holy, this probably just makes its whole own deck of copying and discarding. You just kick out APOC and Hella, and you just run Stature. Try to get buffs on her maybe, and then Moon Girl, and then discard a card from your opponent's hand. Kind of a disruption tool as well to get your opponent to discard cards. Like, holy smokes, I think it's just such a good card. It's like borderline 5, but I'm going to hold back and just give her 4. All right, next up is Random. And as you might guess, he has a random effect, but surprisingly not that bad and somewhat controlled. So it's a 4 cost, 0 power. Mr. Negative, anybody? Right? Okay, we'll get there. On reveal, set this card's power equal to the power of a random card in your deck. So like if you can only play this on turn 4, let's say naturally, you've probably already drawn at least 3 cards, 6 cards. You only have like 5 or 6 cards left in your deck to actually pull from. So you're always going to kind of know, okay, it's going to be this, 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 or this. Like it's not that hard to evaluate what random's power output is going to be. And you probably loaded your deck with a bunch of high power stuff. America Chavez comes to mind as an easy 4/9, which is a good stat line because she's always going to be in the deck. So there's always a good chance that she'll end up being hit by random. And if you have other high power things like the Infinite chilling in your deck, boom, he's a 420. He's blazing those triple guns he's got going on in his hand. That's a pretty wild look he's got there, but I'm here for it. So yeah, it's a pretty wild card. Yeah, it's a bit random. If rocks end up in your deck, you're going to cry because he's going to get 0 power from one of those rocks and it sucks. But overall, I think this will end up being pretty good. I gotta give it 3 because it's random. Anytime something's random, it's not consistent enough for me to love it and give it 4 or 5 stars. I also just don't love random effects in general in Marvel Snap, so that makes me want to reduce their star level. But another card I was thinking about was Mr. Negative, because naturally you think if it has 0 power, it becomes 4 power by default, and then it would be a good fit for that deck. But even though I put it here, it was a bit of a bait. I don't actually think it's good in negative decks, because he's going to set his power to whatever he gets from your deck. And that's going to reduce the 4 that you got from the swap anyways. Yeah, he was free, but probably a lot of cards in your deck are not that high power. If you're trying to do a negative deck and swap it, I'd say at most you'd have a 5 power card like from an Iron Man that got swapped, or 6 power. So maybe that's enough to warrant putting random in your Mr. Negative deck. But then there's also the risk of if you don't draw negative and all that stuff, you could get -1 from random. So I just feel like that's super inconsistent despite being a 0 power card that normally would naturally fit in a negative deck. I don't think you end up putting this one in. I think it gets omitted. But I've been wrong 1,000 times over with negative decks and his synergies, so it could be a possibility. But I think the number 1 synergistic card is America Chavez for that guaranteed 9, 4 for 9. That's a win. Okay, and then we got to talk about Darkhawk. So this one kind of changed. Like, you've probably seen this card before. I've talked about this card before, but it had a different version. It used to be a 1/3, and I believe, I didn't look it up, but I believe the effect was something along the lines, it can't be the first card played at a location. So you had to like play something else, then play it. So it literally was a dead 1-drop because on turn 1 you couldn't play it because you haven't played anything else. And then maybe on your turn 2 you'd play it if you play something, or I don't even know. It'd be really tough to pull off for only 3 power. That was the only benefit. So it was a pretty bad card, I think, beforehand. Now, Darkhawk has changed to a 4 cost 1 power. Now, one thing I want to note about this, they have said that they want new cards coming out every single week. And I think this big batch of 16 was to make up for all the weeks prior that they haven't been doing so. So I'm thinking, my guess is that Darkhawk is coming in December. I'm going to put some money on it because they just changed its effect. And I think historically, whenever they change the effect, it's probably going to come out soon. So I think this guy's coming soon. So anyways, his effect of ongoing +2 power for each card in your opponent's deck. So I don't know how I feel about this. If nothing is drawn, like it just natural draws throughout a game, I think you're going to have 3 cards in your deck, which is 6 power, and then he becomes a 4/7, which is not good value, not worth running. He does have the ongoing tag, so maybe you double it with Onslaught, or you hit him with Spectrum and becomes a little bit more valuable. Honestly, I see those scenarios working out pretty decently. But where I really think he shines, and I love it, is a rock deck. Yeah, the rock deck is coming together. I've always wanted a card that read, this card gets +2 power for each rock in your opponent's deck. Because then when they drew the rock, you would know when you lose the 2 power that they drew a rock. I love that effect so much. And this is the closest thing I'm probably ever going to get to that, even though it doesn't let me know when they drew a rock. But it synergizes with putting rocks in your opponent's deck, which gives Korg a little bit more life. He was already kind of decent, to be honest. You just don't see him often. But Rock Slide is a dead card that might actually come to life because of Darkhawk. We could have a disruption deck where you shove random things into your opponent's deck, then they end up drawing and conceding, which is probably not good for cube gain, but it'd be pretty funny nonetheless. Another one I thought of was Black Widow. You put the Widow's Bite in their hand and then they can't draw any more cards afterwards. That seems pretty good. So they're a little bit deck locked and then they draw a card the next turn. So basically you've preserved 1 card in their deck, which gives Darkhawk +2 power. I mean, heck, if they end up with like 5 cards in their deck by the end of the game, that's 10, that's 11. That's a 4 for 11. So this can very quickly get a lot of value. But it's just a little bit dependent. If they bring any kind of draw to the table, which luckily there's not a lot in Marvel Snap, then they're going to really diminish the value of Darkhawk. And he's ongoing, so you probably play him on turn 4. He's at risk of Rogue, Enchantress, those kinds of cards, so you got to watch out for that. But then he also has the synergy with Spectrum and stuff, so it goes both ways with ongoing cards. All in all, I'm giving him 2 stars for now because I don't think there's enough support. If we had something else like Rock Slide or Korg, I'd probably give him 3 or 4 because the value is there. I can see it. It's just like you'd have to draw those rock boys to actually get more value, or hope the locations work out for you. Like Subterranea all of a sudden, unfortunately, becomes the best possible location with that deck, which is just whack, and I'm not here for it, but I'm kind of here for the card. So I don't know how I feel. I have conflicted feelings. All right, and then we got Ghost. Guys, this is crazy. In my last custom card video, AKG, a user in the Berryverse Discord, submitted a card called Ghost, which was a 1-cost 2 power. I'll have it on the screen here. And its ability was that it couldn't be affected by on-reveal effects. And I know that is quite different than what we got going on here, but my goodness, that is a close call. Oh my gosh, it's so cool to see our custom cards actually coming something real, almost very close. I mean, it's a coincidence, but hey, it's there. So anyways, this card I actually think is quite good. This is a pretty sneaky little card here. So it's a 1-drop. Maybe you buff it with Kazar, maybe because it has the ongoing tag, it works in Spectrum decks. That's actually a great utility tool because Spectrum will go on last. Maybe that helps give you the extra buffs when you need it. I don't know if that's really that viable, but the Spectrum buffing a 1-cost is great. But really the value I see is with Shang-Chi and Enchantress, because the worst feeling is if you have Shang-Chi in hand, you know your opponent's been waiting to play that big card like Infinite or something, but you reveal first. So it's just dead. It's just dead in your hand, and you know you could stop it. You know it's happening, but you just don't have the priority for it. And instead, what this card will let you do is just sit back and know that you can just anticipate that play, know where they're going to play that big card, and Shang-Chi it. Or Enchantress. If they play Iron Man too early, then you just know that you can play Enchantress pretty safely. Now, the biggest counter to Ghost in general is Cosmo. Cosmo will stop all of these on reveals no matter what. But it's not location dependent, so it's across your entire board, so maybe you'll be okay finding that spot to Enchantress, hitting one of their ongoing cards. But overall, I see this working in a control archetype, not really the flooding archetype, even though it might find a place there. I think if you're running a control deck and this is your only 1-drop to get out early, then it's pretty great. And even if you can't get it out early, just fleshing out your curve on turn 4 or 5 to like play a 4-cost, but then have 1 mana over and you spend it on Ghost, that's a pretty good strategy, because then on turn 6, you can kind of just assess the board. It's actually better, and the reason Snap is set up this way, it's better to go second and react to your opponent's cards rather than go first. In most scenarios, there's the odd occasion where that doesn't work out, like your opponent Professor X a lane and you play Dr. Doom and the Doom bot doesn't go there, and that sucks, right? Because you went second. So there is the odd time, but I'd say in general, most of the time it's better to go second, and this card allows it. And even if it gets Enchantress, big deal. It was your 1-drop. It's not going to break the game. So I'm giving Ghost 4 stars. I really like this card. The flavor and the look is so good. Oh my goodness. Look at the art there. Like the shaking robot look and everything. Like about to go invisible. Oh my gosh. It's so good. And the hood and everything. Amazing. Love it. I would give it 5 stars for that reason, but I'm giving it 4 because it's not that game breaking. It's not going to make a huge difference. Just give a little bit extra sauce to the control decks and maybe some ongoing Spectrum decks. Okay, and that was the cards, but we also have some locations. Now, the projected schedule is my guess. I've seen on a variety of websites, snap.fan in particular, go check them out, that this is the locations for the upcoming month, the December month. But when I look at these locations, they kind of look like Savage Land, which is supposed to be the January season. So I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not too confident in the dates, but if it were the December schedule for these locations, this is what it would look like on the 6th, 13th. It's essentially every Tuesday night. But anyways, into the locations themselves, the star rating isn't like a power level. It's just a matter of how much I like it or don't like it and how toxic I think it'll be for the game or how fun it'll be. So Altar of Death, I'm giving 4 stars. When you play a card here, destroy it to get +2 energy next turn. That's pretty cool because that's ramp and it helps destroy decks. Maybe a little bit too much. And maybe there's starting to be too many locations that actually benefit destroy decks. Might be a problem moving forward in Marvel Snap, but this one definitely helps. Now, one thing about this location is it's super similar to Death's Domain. When you play a card here, destroy it. This is when you play a card here, destroy it, but you also get +2 energy next turn. So it's like just they're one and the same, like a little bit too close in my opinion, because like what if these were both on the field? And then you get to play your Bucky Barnes or your one drops. They get destroyed. You get +2 power. Like, oh my gosh, +2 energy rather. It's going to get pretty out of hand. But I do think it's pretty cool. I like ramp options in the locations. They end up making for some really creative games. So I'm kind of here for this location, but a little bit not 5 stars because it's a little too close to Death's Domain. Okay, and then we have the Collapsed Mine. Fill this location with rocks. Oh yeah, more rocks. Ooh, baby. Skip a turn to destroy your rocks. And that's the reason I like this location. It's not 1 star. It would have been if it was just fill this location with rocks, because that sucks. But the fact that you can plan out your turns and skip to destroy them and then have to commit more resources there to beat out your opponent is pretty interesting. And then there's also Killmonger just to get rid of these rocks if you wanted to, but it would help out your opponent. So it makes a really interesting situation where like if your opponent passes, then you can almost guarantee they're going to put power there. And that's a bit nerve-wracking. But can they afford to pass? Like, what are they playing? Are they playing high value things? What if you don't really need that location? You abandon it, let your rocks just be there. Maybe you're even playing Kazar and you get a bunch of buffs there, or Blue Marvel or something like that. So I don't know. There's a lot of avenues with this one. It does fill a lot of space. It fills a third of your space unless you pass a turn. So if this happens on turn 3, oh my gosh, that kind of feels bad because that's one of the later turns that you have to pass to clear the rocks. Could work really well with Infinite. Pass on 5, Infinite on 6. Boom! 20 power on my rock location. We're all good. Win the game. So I don't know. It's an interesting one. I like the idea of skipping a turn to get ahead of your opponent. That's an interesting mechanic and a mutual effect of both sides getting rocks. You can play cards there early and then you would have a power advantage naturally. Then you wouldn't have to pass your turn, right? Because you like played Nightcrawler there or whatever else, taking up a spot. Then you only get 3 or 2 rocks. So that's an interesting strategy as well as playing at the unknown location. But anyways, it's all right. I gave it 3 stars. But Eternity Range, I'm giving 1 star. After turn 3, add a rock to the losing player's side. Whoa! No. I do not like this one for quite a few reasons. But the biggest reason being, why are we punishing the losers? They're already losing. They're just going to start retreating if you start losing and this location's out because you're just going to get a bunch of rocks and you don't want rocks. This should give a rock to the winning player's side. You know, to give the loser a chance or a dream or hope to get ahead. I don't know. I just don't like this at all. It is after turn 3, so it's just like a one-time thing. It's just 1 rock. But like, oh my gosh, I don't need that rock. I'm already losing. Why are you kicking me when I'm down? Maybe the rock works out. Maybe you're running a destroy deck and you can destroy it and it's an extra destroy and you're happy about that. Maybe. I'd say in most case scenarios, that rock is going to be a total thorn in your side. It might even end up losing you that location because you don't have the available board space there to overcome whatever power output your opponent's already committed. So I don't know. It's not that crazy. I know I'm over exaggerating. It's just a rock on one player's side and that's all this does. But it's just a bit annoying. Why is it got to be on the loser side? That's a bit rough, I think. I'd prefer if it was on the winner side. All right, and then we have Plunder Castle. This one gets 4 stars. I like this one quite a bit, but there's one thing I'm not too sure. So only cards that cost 6 can be played here. Super cool. We're doing the weekly custom challenge right now for the custom cards, and it's all about 6 costs. So it's pretty interesting to see a location like this. But what if you're not running a 6 cost and this pops up? It's going to feel really bad. You can't get a card over there unless you move it somehow. Maybe movement decks do really well in this kind of location because, there's no constraint to moving them there. It's just playing. Dr. Doom and these kind of things can get Doombots over there, White Tigers and whatnot. So there's other ways to get power to this location rather than just playing a 6 drop. But it is pretty interesting, just the big showdown. If it's turn 6, it's like, all right, which 6 cost are you got in your pocket? Because here's my bam, Infinite because I passed on turn 5, or here's my leader to counter whatever else you got. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I vibe with this location, and I actually like the ones that make it so that you can't play certain cards at certain locations, kind of like Sanctum Sanctorum. You can't play cards there at all. So you got to be sneaky and try and figure out ways to get power there, and then you'll probably end up winning the game because any power at those locations usually gets you the dub. But my favorite one of this batch is the last one. It is the Rickety Bridge. So after each turn, if there is more than 1 card here, destroy them. Now, one thing I'm not 100% clear on, I'd have to see it, and let me know your take on it in the comments below. But when it says destroy them, does that imply all the cards? If there's more than 1, it just destroys them all? And it says here Like that could be reciprocal for you and your opponent. If there's just at any given time 2 cards at this location, they get destroyed. Like that's crazy. How do you even win the location? Things are just going to explode left, right, and center. Or does it mean destroy them as in the one that you just played there? So the oldest one standing will actually survive. I think it's what I was saying before. Everything just gets destroyed, which is just utter chaos. Of course, things like Bucky Barnes make it through. Armor, unfortunately, it gets a benefit here, preventing anything from being destroyed. Professor X, even. Those kinds of cards, of course, are always going to pull through at the destroyed locations. But what a wild effect. Just crazy. I don't even think there's like, if one card has more power than the other, it doesn't matter. My little wasp could take down your Infinite. That's what I'm reading here. It's just nuts. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. That is the data mines for this latest patch. I think every patch we're going to get some data mines. So definitely Snap subscribe to keep updated with these new cards that are going to be coming to Snap. I keep you guys updated on all things Snap related. We're doing some new cards. I got Bass recently, so we're going to play with that tonight. I'm super stoked. But anyways, thank you as always for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.